Good day, everybody. Tom Block, Keith Jones, and Bob Ferrante from the Osceola. This is Front Row Noles, Seminole Sidelines on the Osceola YouTube channel. Gentlemen, how are we? Have we recovered from the onslaught that we witnessed at Doak over the weekend?
I need an off week. Can you schedule an open date for me, please?
You know what? We'll go ahead and take this Saturday off, Keith, just because you requested. We'll come back and we'll ease back into it next week against Kent State. Does that work for you?
I appreciate it.
Bob,
I think we about these early buys. Do we like the early buy? I mean, I like having two buys in a season. Is this too early, or does it feel just about right?
Feels a little early to me, but if you're going to get two, you can't complain. And I don't know how they do it. Jim Curry, ironically, the AD of the team that Florida State just pounded, who used to be at FSU, he would always tell us when we'd have him on to talk scheduling that you kind of give your top request to the conference. And they try to honor one request for every school. And I think this year for Florida State, I don't know this, it probably was we'd like a bye week after the West Coast trip to Stanford, which they got. And then the other one just fell where it is this week. And again, I don't know that. Michael Alford's going to join us later in the show. We could ask him that. But yeah, to your point, it feels a little early, but I'm not going to argue. If you have two, I'm good with it. Last year we had three. Keith, do you need every other week at your age? I mean, how many bye weeks do we need to accommodate?
You had to go there, Tom. You had to go there. Yes,
sorry.
Every other week would be a reasonable request for my age group. Yes.
10 touchdowns on your first 10 drives and 11 out of 12 and no punts. And other than a turnover by the fourth string quarterback, I mean, what do you put if you're writing out the good and the bad? It feels like there's an awful lot on the left side of the page and not very much in the right-hand column. Agree, disagree, guys?
I think beyond the stats, it's just player development and experience. I mean, if you're going to schedule an FCS opponent, and everybody does across college football, I'm not knocking it. I think you got to get your money's worth. It's $450,000, but it's money well spent when it comes to the opportunity to get the younger guys out there and to get those backups out there too. I think one of our big questions going into this year was the lack of experience for a lot of players. And now they can say, well, I've got some of that experience. And then maybe you get that chance again against Kent State to keep building it, because you might need some of these guys in the ACC schedule. So yes, a lot of positives out of the box score, but I love the participation chart, honestly, getting 80 plus guys out there.
Guys, the thing we sometimes don't think about is for those kids that are on, they call them the black ops. We referred to them in the day as the scout team. That you're replicating your opponent's plays. You're not even running your plays. You may not even know your calls. And as someone in myself, my freshman year, I never dressed. I was on the scout team 100%. Just being able to get to the field is such a huge positive, because you realize you may go back and spend the next 5 weeks on the scout team and never see the field again, but you did get to make the field. Your teammates from high school saw you on television. Your parents were in the stand. They saw you on the field. You can't believe the morale booster it is for those third and fourth and or fifth team guys. You can't replicate that any other way than playing in a game.
I'll say this now, looking back, I didn't want to talk about it too much in advance. And I think everybody was so excited, not just because the team played well, but because a lot of these type of opponents, you're often not motivated mentally. You're not into it. You win the game and it's 40-20 or whatever. But the three memories that stick in my mind over the last decade or so are the Jordan Travis game where he gets hurt because you're kind of playing with your food and he decides to run. You have the Jacksonville State game from earlier in Norvell's career. And you go back to when Derwin was here, and I forget the opponent, but they were drilling him at halftime. And this is one of those hindsight's always 20/20. Jimbo puts the starters back in for the first series of the second half, and that's when Derwin goes down for the year. And so it's one of those things where you always just want to come out of it healthy, and those are some of the memories that stick out. So I'm glad that last week's game was what it was. A couple of guys got nicked, but I don't think anything as serious as what I just referenced with Derwin. Do we have any update or any idea on those guys, Squirrel in particular?
Yeah, Mike Norvell was asked about that Tuesday after practice, and he really has said nothing, long term in terms of guys maybe being out. So I think we're still kind of waiting on a few people. Randy Pittman his left knee was wrapped up, pregame when he was out there on the field. So obviously that was a type of procedure there as he kind of works his way back to the field. One good note is Mike Norvell mentioned LaWayne McCoy getting more extensive, practice time as he works his way back from injury, and Norvell calling him a tier 1 guy. I think you like to hear that as you're thinking about wide receiver depth, and that the head coach who loves to coach his receivers calls LaWayne McCoy a tier 1 guy. So good to get him back in the picture whenever that might be.
Any other update on running back Williams?
Yeah, I felt like reading the tea leaves, because Mike Norvell doesn't love to give so much on injuries, right? It felt like the Randy Pittman timeline was a little bit more short term. The Roydell was a little bit more long term, but he again said not season ending. So I start to worry a little bit more about Roydell. Now, from a positive standpoint, that running back depth was really on display against East Texas A&M. You see why they went out and got Gavin Sawchuk, right? I mean, that's another big body that's very punishing in the run game. He's known for pass protection. So you've got to accumulate depth, especially if your MO is going to be a physical downhill run offense like this.
All right, let's set the slate for today. Director of Athletics Michael Alford will join us for the next couple of segments. We'll pick his brain about television ratings and future conference scheduling and adding Notre Dame more thoroughly into the mix, the stadium, all that type stuff. Bob, you were at the Tallahassee Quarterback Club on Tuesday night, and Danny Canel, I guess, was the speaker. Danny Canel was on the field with a cast of 1,000 literal former FSU stars for the Alabama game. He had a couple of his two of his 3 daughters were with him at the game. They were wearing 13 Canel jerseys, by the way. And I did point out to Danny, I said, Danny, you don't really see a lot of Canel jerseys around Tallahassee these days. He was kind of chuckling about it. But what did he have to say? He's obviously become a big voice in college football. What was his, thoughts? What kind of his takeaways from Tuesday night at the Quarterback Club?
Danny told some funny stories about just all of a sudden there's thousands of people around him. And one of the daughters was lost briefly, but she was hanging out with an FSU football player who was helping out her social media feed by finding good moments and memories from that upset win. But yeah, Danny, of course, loves Florida State, loves the ACC, and likes to take shots at the SEC. So that's great for the Florida State fan base. I thought he was really interesting too, talking about Tommy Castellanos, just how he was uncertain and had been critical about Tommy, for leaving Boston College early, that he had shown some good and shown some bad on film, and was this guy a great fit for Florida State? That was his initial kind of analyst reaction. And then the more he got to analyze the why, the fit with Gus Malzahn, the more he got to talk to Tommy and understand who he is, understand that charisma. I think it kind of changed a little bit of who Tommy was in Danny's eyes. So it was a really good night with Danny, just covering a lot of different topics from Florida State through college football.
Tommy, back in the day, real quick, when I was doing Gridiron Greats and filming some stuff for the old Sunshine Network over the summer, we did a recap of FSU Miami down there, and Canel was going to be our special guest, and he was a little bit late. He comes rolling up to the old Orange Bowl, and he's got the biggest Mercedes-Benz I've ever seen in my life. I thought it was a dadgum limousine. It was a 600 series Mercedes. I didn't even know they made them. So every time I see Canel, I tease him about his Mercedes. I don't know what he drives right now, but at one time he had a big black Mercedes.
See, and this is the kind of information you pick up on Front Row Noles that you don't get elsewhere. More information to pick up when Michael Alford joins us right after this. Stay with us here on FRN. We are back on Front Row Noles, and really pleased as we open up the Earl Bacon Agency hotline, the Earl Bacon Agency, ensuring your future together, to say hello to our Director of Athletics at Florida State, Michael Alford. And Michael met with his team over the summer, and he scripted what was going to happen in September, late August and early September. And I'd like to congratulate you. It was a pretty good game plan you put together for the first couple of weeks of the season, Michael.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Nice seeing you, KJ and Bob. It was just working together, a great team effort, getting the stadium ready, doing our part of the operational side, and then also, Coach doing his job. getting the team ready and going out and put on a great performance here in the first couple of weeks. So, everything has gone well. Little behind the scenes hiccups in stadiums. Anytime you open a stadium, I've been a part of opening many, and you're always going to have those behind the scenes hiccups. But everything, as I call it, front of house has gone well. And
Michael,
really,
that's the interesting thing about stadiums. You don't get a soft opening. It's not like a new restaurant.
no,
The
yeah,
feedback I've gotten is everything was unbelievably good. What's your team telling you about the opening?
yeah, that's everything I've heard, KJ. Like I said, little things, minor details that we could fix, improve. A lot of the logistics that you wouldn't even notice as a normal fan walking through, but we notice on some getting into the gates and having backup scanners that went down, but we're able to get people through the gates efficiently. So, it was a great opening. I applaud our team. They worked hard this summer, making sure that we were prepared. And I give them all the credit in the world. They've done a great job.
We're talking with Director of Athletics, Michael Alford. Michael, the atmosphere in Tallahassee, as you know, when the football team is winning, it completely changes everything. I'm sure that's true inside the athletic center too. And we understand it's only 2 football games right now, but for everything to go as well as it's gone right now, what does that change for you and your team, or just kind of the mood around campus and around the athletic department right now?
Well, Tom, I will tell you, it does change the mood around the Moore Center. Anytime you have a great wins like we had, even volleyball's getting off to a hot start, soccer's gotten off to a hot start, it does change the mood. You have a lot more smiles. And then you walk across campus, and any time after a win on a Saturday, that Monday through Friday seems to be a lot more smiling on campus. And it's funny, you go back and look at studies, and they've just noticed grades get higher, class attendance goes up a little bit more, and it's an amazing effect. But even in the city, you walk through downtown Tallahassee around lunchtime, and people just have an extra little giddy up in their step. And that's something that really we take pride in. And we know our responsibility is to go out and just bring goodwill to all Seminoles out there. And part of that is performing well on Saturdays. So we couldn't be more ecstatic with the start of our seasons across all of our sports, and really looking to continue this momentum moving forward.
Michael, one of the things that happens in team athletics is we looked at stuff on the field, on the court, whatever's going on. But there was a major overhaul with the coaching staff. I've been impressed with how these professionals have come together and gelled so quickly. You're behind the scenes. You know them, obviously. Have you seen something like this happen before this quickly?
Yeah, it's KJ. It's been a great, and it started immediately when we got him in. When Tony White, we were able to negotiate to get him from Nebraska and bring him in because we loved his scheme. We loved the type of person he was. He fits the culture that we have. Working with Mike to be able to go get Gus. I'll never forget when he comes to me and says, "Hey, I think we can get Gus at UCF." I was like, "Can we? Are you sure about that?" I'm
Right.
all for it if we can. But be able to put him in that CEO role is something that we discussed in the offseason, and that was something that was important. You see the energy that he's brought across the entire organization. He's not so much concentrating in that offensive room right now. He's able to put his culture and influence, whether it's in the defensive meeting room, whether it's in special teams, he's bouncing around practice, coaching everyone. And that's something that we felt the program needed, was his energy all the time. Not just part of the time when he was able to do it when he wasn't in the offensive coordinator's room, offensive staff room, being the offensive coordinator. So seeing that change is something I'm really happy about. But you also see the type of people he brought in. Herb Hand just making a difference, and what Gus has been able to done with the culture. And of course, Tony White, as I mentioned, is coming in and establishing his culture. And they're just great people. And that's something that really stood out to me, is how the buy-in to what Coach Norvell wants to get done and his vision for the program. But then how, as you pointed out, how quickly they gelled together to also assist in that vision and kind of get it going on a faster pace.
Michael Gus Malzahn has said a couple of times, he's an old high school football coach at heart. He really wants to be a coach.
I was in grad school at Arkansas when he was at Shallow Springs. I remember him from back then.
I think he was frustrated by the big picture CEO responsibilities of being a head coach, the NIL, the recruiting, all these different components. I think he just wants to coach. I think he was asked at the quarterback club, "Are you having fun?" on Tuesday night by one of the fans. And he said, "Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun, a lot more fun than the last 4 years." And he wasn't being mean about UCF. It was just, he is enjoying this kind of new version of what he can do. Have you kind of taken that in as part of the picture of when he was hired and just how much he could enjoy this new responsibility?
Well, it's definitely something we talked about, Bob, when discussing with him and making that transition over. And that was one of the points he brought out. Look, I just want to be a football coach. I want to do what I love doing. I want to love putting in game plans. I want to spend time with the student athletes and having an impact on them. And I want to be able to go in and put an offensive game plan that's going to be successful and just concentrate on those elements. And that was something we discussed. And then once again, it gave Mike the freedom to have his impact on other parts of the organization. So in our dealings with Gus, I mean, he has done everything that we talked about and then some. His personality across the Moore Center really stands out, how involved he is with everyone that comes through the Moore Center. So, we got another head coach too, sitting there that also has some of that experience in helping our program mature along and stay on the course of where we set it forth. So I couldn't be more excited for him. Could be. He seems very happy in what he's doing right now. And it was everything he laid out he wanted to do. He has come in and done more. And I couldn't be more satisfied with the relationship and the partnership we have with Coach Malzahn.
Michael, going back to the stadium, one of the things you've talked about and part of the vision is to make this a year-round venue where there's other opportunities to generate revenue in the off-season. And if you'd like to divulge who the first concert's going to be, you can do so right now on Front Row Noles. But I'll give you an out on that. Can you give us an idea of how many events you're looking at, when they might be, kind of the broad range that they might be, so fans are aware?
Yeah, I'm looking to really turn that into a venue that enhances Tallahassee and Leon County. And that's something we've always said for many years now since we started this project, is to make sure that we can have a first-rate venue that people want to come perform in. And we've done that with the renovations. We've been able to do that by being able to broaden one of the bombs to get 18-wheelers to ground level. But we are talking about some full stadium acts. We're in negotiations on those. And I think there's some things that are going to be really exciting for our community, the Panhandle, the region, especially when we are able to announce those coming. So I couldn't be more excited about what we're doing right off the bat. I've always said January to April, I want to be dirt season. And when I say dirt season, that's things going on inside that venue. Whether it's motocross, whether it's monster trucks, whether it's concerts, you name it, we want to be doing things that fans can come and enjoy that venue of all year long. So that's something we're working diligently on and continuing to go out and try to find people who are interested in coming and performing here in Tallahassee.
Now, Michael, as a former football player, I just have one request. I remember showing up about 9 o'clock on a Friday night before a home game, fixing to get on the bus and go up to Thomasville to spend the night, which is where Coach Bowden took us. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking out there on the stadium, and the Little River Band is performing on a Friday night during the season. And I'm going, dang, I wish I could see that. Don't bring in the Little River Band on a Friday night. That's the only thing I ask.
No plans on the Little River Band. And we're going to try to protect the fall as well, because, we're going to be laying new sod every year. That's just part of the plan moving forward, the pro forma. And just like we did this year, that sod will be coming up, as I call dirt season. We'll be putting new sod down, that lay in place sod every year moving forward. So, that's something that we're real excited about. And then the venues. We're going to be being aggressive and working with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, working with Tallahassee community on using that venue to attract people to Tallahassee, even in the new club space. Come and have an event in that new club space and bring people here to this wonderful community. And that's something we're even going to be going out even more aggressively on in the future as we get now this stadium kind of orchestrated where operationally it can withstand us doing that.
We are pleased to be talking with Director of Athletics Michael Alford. We'll take a quick break, come right back. A few more questions. We'll go beyond football and more as we roll on Front Row Noles. We are back on Front Row Noles. I do want to get to basketball here in a moment, but Michael, the TV number for Alabama was huge, and Florida State always does great numbers, and now will be monetized, based on that success. You knew that would be the case, but it's certainly nice when you set the bar with where the Alabama figures came in, and you're off to a 2-0 start. There's going to be a lot of big number games this year for Florida State.
No problem. No question, Tom, especially when you look at the peak number of 12.9. That really just shows the brand and the power of the brand. We've gone back many, many years and studied Seminole football and when we are. And what I love doing is looking at our numbers on the West Coast, and I look at major markets and what we were doing there and how well we do across the country. And that's something you might have heard me talk about once or twice in the last few years.
No, never.
It's so important. It's so important. We go out and represent this great university and represent that brand and put it on a national stage so people understand what we're about here at Florida State, and allows us to tell our story and gets people's interest in it. But it is so important, that Alabama game. We have some other big games coming up this year that are I believe, going to have huge numbers with the interest in those games. So it does help us moving forward. It does help us in the new success initiatives and the new media agreement with the ACC, that you have the right to go schedule games. And it's not just us, it's anyone within the conference can schedule these games to grow their media value. And it's also an incentive for everyone to go out and schedule opponents like in Alabama to grow our media value and to grow the perception of the conference. And that's something that's very important to us.
So, Michael, as we do change gears and maybe focus on basketball, is what I'm reading correct? Might we have a top 5 or even a top number one basketball recruiting class with head coach Laux?
Well, he's done an amazing job hitting the ground running. I don't know how many days he's been here, but not long. And he has done an amazing job. But that really stood out, KJ, during the interview process, and getting down and getting to know him through that process, his energy and seeing what he would bring and his game plan and his vision for not only the basketball portion. That's something that I know we're in great hands, and how analytical he is and how he's a great teacher. And that's one thing everyone in the NBA really emphasized to me when I spoke to people about him, is what a great teacher he was at the game. And that's coming in the NBA and developing players in the NBA. So relating that to how he's going to develop guys in college was really easy to me. But how he's embraced the community. He's a Seminole, but he gets out and shares the vision of his program, which I love. He gets around in the community with donors and everyone alike, and really paints a picture of where he's going to take this program, and getting people to buy in or understand the vision where he wants to take it, and therefore they want to partner with him. And that's something that's really stood out. I knew that was coming with his personality and the game plan and vision he had. It matches what we're trying to do as an entire athletic department. And I always say it was so important, not only his personality, but whenever you hire a new coach, you've got to be very diligent in understanding that type of person and their vision. Because I've got a lot of great head coaches. I think we got the best head coaches assembled in the country. And it's amazing the culture they have within each other. I got to make sure I don't bring in a coach that disrupts that wants to be in a silo and not participate in our total culture of our athletic department. So it's been amazing to see him at soccer games, his basketball teams at soccer games, their football games. They're everywhere. And that's what fits what we're trying to do across all of our sports and what we have been able to get accomplished across our sports. And those coaches really share ideas amongst each other. There are no egos when they're around each other. And I had to make sure not only can he coach the game, but he fit that culture of those other head coaches. And that's always so important to me when I do a new head coaching search.
What does he meant as far as, also connecting to the community? You mentioned that, but there's a ticket sales component. There's a revenue component there too, where you can probably fill up the seats a little bit better, and maybe even move some folks around. Or could students have a different venue and just create that kind of Tucker Center atmosphere that makes it a tougher environment, I think, for opponents too.
Yes, ticket sales are going great. We just launched that, and they're ahead of pace of where they've been the last few years. And I think that's because people are excited about Luke and what he brings to the table. And we are examining, working with campus and working with our student group on what can we do to make the student environment better. So I think you're going to see some changes coming in the future on that, Bob, for sure, to get them closer to the court, to get that environment going. And Luke does such a great job of going out and really working with the student groups to get them to come to the games. And they support us 100%. They support us, but how do we get them into a better environment where they can make that difference around the court? And that's something we're diligently working on.
Michael, this will be a broad question, but the football only facility is coming online, and we've heard a lot about that, but I haven't heard as much about what's going to happen to the space in the Moore Center that football currently uses. And then related with Luke Laux and basketball, I don't know if there's further expansion coming to any of the hoops facilities. So kind of a broad-based, I know there's always a list, and you've checked the stadium and you're about to check the football facility off the list. So what's coming next?
You know me, Tom. I got a big list of things that we need to check off. But yeah, we're examining what we're going to do with our basketball facility, our practice facility, and looking at what other sports can we get down in that venue. Do we build new? So that is something that we're currently looking at and have started that process. We've started a process on looking at Hauser and what can we do there, and that process is going. We're building a new lacrosse facility. That's going. We are putting permanent seats into, like we did at football, into the soccer facility coming up. So we're constantly looking at how we improve our facilities moving forward. We're examining a new beach complex because that's much needed here at FSU. So there's a lot of plans that we have. Our feet are not standing still, even though the stadium's done and the football only facilities coming on board this October. My poor guy, Ben Zierd, who does an amazing job as Senior Associate AD for Capital Projects. He's working his tail off, and I'm already coming to him with more projects, and he hadn't finished the ones he's got and getting these other ones going. But it's so important that we continue to build, that we continue to provide these winning edge resources for our student athletes. And that part of that is facilities. It's culture, it's facilities, it's academic support, it's nutrition, it's all the components of it. But a big part for recruiting is facilities and making sure that we are cutting edge on those. We kind of took time for many years where we weren't investing in facilities. And now we have to make sure that we provide those resources for our student athletes. So it is important that we continue to build and look and design, and then go out and ask people to partner with us to help us provide those resources to our student athletes.
I got one more as we finish up, and this is another broad one, Michael, but the SEC is going to 9 conference games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what the ACC will ultimately do, in your opinion, how that might impact the Georgia series that's on the books in a couple of years. And then also part of the new media arrangement with the ACC is that there would be more Notre Dame, Florida State games coming. I think Clemson has announced some of their games with Notre Dame. Is there any news imminent there in terms of FSU and Notre Dame? So kind of a big picture. What's the future of scheduling?
Yeah, it's something we're constantly looking at. I'm a big believer in brand on brand. As you know, to grow Florida State, to grow our brand, we need to be playing marquee opponents. And that's something I'm working with the conference on. We already play Notre Dame more than anybody within our conference. Probably not now that Clemson did their agreement. The way we look at that and working with Clemson and Notre Dame and Miami and everybody else within our room, I kind of view that Clemson Notre Dame agreement as their Miami game that we have every year. that marquee game, kind of matching what we do, not a conference game, but matching a marquee game. We're going to continue to look to play the best competition. We are talking about whether we stay 8-2, 9-1. To be honest with you, I'm 50-50. I need to do research, and I got analytical information coming my way on what's best for us. But we've always played a great 8-2, and that's something. There's only 2 teams in the conference that have played 8-2 as a requirement to the ESPN contract, and that's us and Clemson. For all these years, we've always played great opponents. We have Florida every year. We had LSU. We got Alabama. We got Georgia coming up, and then we play our 8 conference games. The 2 of us have already been playing a very robust schedule to grow our brands. So does 9-1 benefit us if we have to drop one of those games and pick up another ACC game? That's what I'm looking. I'm looking at the TV metrics. I'm running those numbers right now to kind of give me some data points to make a more informed decision on it. I have some thoughts on it, and we'll be sharing those thoughts as we continue to talk within the conference.
Sounds good. We'll let you get on with your day, Michael, but we appreciate it. Congrats on the early season success. Enjoy the bye week if you get to take time off and actually watch other football games. We'll see you back at Doak next weekend.
I'm looking forward to it, Doak, next weekend. My bye week, I'm actually getting to go to Buffalo to see my daughter who works for the Bills, and going to head up and spend a weekend with her, and really excited about that. But looking forward to seeing everybody back in Doak next week against Kent State. There's going to be another exciting atmosphere at 3:30. So don't forget, when you leave for the game, leave your TVs on.
Good sage advice from FSU's AD, and a good start for Buffalo to the season. Tell Keon hello when you get up there. We'll take a break, come back with more Front Row Noles right after this. A few minutes to finish up, react to the comments from Director of Athletics Michael Alford. Nice home office, by the way. Did you guys like that? The spear, the whole setup. I mean, he not only has a studio at the office, he's got a backup studio at the house. So that's not a bad situation to be in.
The man's thinking about TV ratings. He's thinking about YouTube ratings with the backdrop too.
How about the fact that he's being serious when he says that when you go to the game, leave your TV on? So for all the technology we have in this world, we still are doing in smaller markets. I think they still do diaries for Nielsen ratings, but in bigger markets, you do actually get something that hooks to the TV, and it's important to leave it on and leave it on the FSU game to help the ratings and the revenue pot. Gentlemen, did you do that before you went to the game last week?
I hit the DVR, but I did not leave the TV on.
Yeah, he's got me thinking. I've got a few TVs. I could put them all on for the FSU Kent State game coming up on the ACC network in a week. Anything that jumped out from what Michael shared? Obviously, he's got a list of things to do, but checking the list, it's been a pretty. If 2024 was not a memorable year, 2025 is shaping up as a pretty good one, starting with the lawsuit resolution in FSU's favor, and now as we move into the season and getting some wins on the field.
I think my biggest takeaway, and it is a very serious conversation. With the SEC going to 9 conference games, when Michael says 9 plus 1, that means you're playing 9 conference games plus one other, really first rate, and then maybe 2 FCSs. That's going to be a difficult decision for the ACC. However, and I didn't say this to him, wouldn't say that to him per se, but I don't think you have a choice. I think you're going to have to go to 9 conference games. And so that does bring into play whether you do continue with the Georgia series in a couple, 3 years, whether you try to schedule Notre Dame. Is Notre Dame considered one of the 9? Is it a separate one? That's what he means by the 9 plus 1 scenario. That's a difficult decision, but guys, your thoughts? I don't think the ACC has a choice. I think they have to go to 9 conference games.
I'm with you. They may not have a choice. It may be good inventory as far as games for your broadcast partners, ESPN, ACC network. I think the counter to that is it's not great for your perception if the ACC schools at large are not viewed very highly. And I think we still have, broadly speaking, an ACC perception issue year to year as far as the brands, as far as when Florida State goes out and beats somebody, is that viewed highly? Can you get a rankings bump, which is less important, but does the CFP view that as a true positive? I'd love to see Florida State play 10 Power 4 games, including Notre Dame, which is what Florida State's been doing right currently. But then, yes, like you're saying, Georgia is going to keep Georgia Tech. No doubt that's not going away. But how can Georgia accommodate Florida State moving forward? I think you do start to worry about that. And then you start to think about, well, how does Florida State find another opponent that gives you an attaboy, an attaboy for that win, or at least that competitive loss, if that's the case.
It's an interesting topic because on the basketball front, where the ACC used to clearly be king, and they expanded the number of conference games because the ACC felt insulated, they're still going to get enough NCAA tournament berths. And then lo and behold, the SEC has taken over, and now the ACC has reduced the number of conference games, so they have more non-conference games to help their RPI to try and get more teams in the tournament. The problem in football is that if you play more non-conference games, you have to win them. And this is where FSU fans really get aggravated at the ACC. This year's a case in point. Florida State's not supposed to be any good nationally from a perception standpoint, yet they're already carrying the league by this win, virtue of this win over Alabama, right? And Miami beating Notre Dame. But other than that, Syracuse loses to Tennessee, Virginia Tech loses to South Carolina, Clemson loses to LSU. And so you get, I mean, if you're playing more of those games and you don't win them, I don't know if it helps you or not. Should point out, by the way, related to next year, that FSU is actually doing the 8+3 thing next year because they have Florida, Alabama, and Notre Dame all on the schedule on top of their 8 conference games. So you can just go ahead and give the television pot of money to FSU for next year with that schedule. So Keith, I don't know if and it's interesting to hear Michael say he's not sure which way is better either, because he's probably wrestling with the same things we're bringing up here.
Yeah, I would have guessed his answer would be yes, we need to go to 9. I was a little not that I'm shocked or anything, but I was a little taken back that he wasn't on board with that. So there obviously are some metrics that are way above our pay grade that he's aware of that are going into his thought process.
Well, think about it separate whether you win the game or not. What's going to do a better TV number? Virginia against Boston College or Virginia against Ole Miss, right? Like if you're instead of another conference game, if you're playing the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to get a better TV number. That's just the reality of it. If you're talking outside of like Florida State, Miami, and Clemson, who are going to do pretty good numbers, whoever they're playing, whether it's in conference or out of conference. I mean, do you agree with that, Bob?
Yeah, I think people want to see. I think the Florida State fan base identifies more with SEC schools, right, than a lot of these ACC schools. It's the problem with where expansion has gone over the decades. Danny Canel was even asked this question at the quarterback club too: is what would he prefer as far as what conference Florida State goes to, but also scheduling too. And he mentioned, could you go to the Big Ten and maybe go to the Big Ten and pick up an opponent or two here or there? Could you do some sort of scheduling agreement? And I don't know, everybody's struggling with scheduling because it's becoming harder and harder. It's becoming, more expensive to book a non-conference game, against a group of 5 or group of 6 opponent. Scheduling is just a really, really tough thing. It's very, very expensive. But I also think the conference, the ACC, has to kind of nail this decision just from the perception viewpoint.
We'll see where it lands. I just I don't honestly know. I mean, Keith, what would you rather watch? I mean, are you more interested in like recycling a mid-level ACC to opponents? It just doesn't move the needle to me.
What I would suggest we all need to think about is the fact that the Chiefs lost their first game of the season this year, and they played in the Super Bowl, et cetera, et cetera. But we're not going to quit watching the Chiefs. And so, yes, if you play Alabama, if you play Georgia, and you lose that game, unfortunately, the way it works right now is that one loss can taint you in the eyes of the CFP. If we can ever get the college game, is anybody counting out the Chiefs right now? Have we written off the Chiefs? They're not worth anything. We're never going to watch them again. No, that's where I hope and think we can get to in the college game, where you might go 8-3, but you played quality opponents, and therefore you're still in the college football playoff. that to me is what we need to keep our eye on.
All right. I know this. It's a lot more fun to talk college football when Florida State's 2-0 instead of the other way around. So, and guess what? We're going to be unbeaten after this weekend too, fellas. And I'll go ahead and call it after next weekend as well. So enjoy September. They haven't always been rosy around here the last decade or so, but this one's off to a pretty good start. Bob, keep up the good work at the Osceola. Keith, keep up the good work in risk management with your students at Florida State. Good cohort this semester. I mean, what's the scouting report? You got some blue chips, some 5-stars. I mean, what are we looking at?
We do. We've got some early signees, and I'm not worried about the transfer portal. They're all going to stay with us. They're not transferring.
Okay, that's because the NIL program that you're funding there is so good in the College of Business. Nice work, KJ. All right, we're out of time, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll do this again. Well, it'll be a week. We'll take a week off since there's no game to recap on Sunday. But anyway, until then, for Bob and Keith, I'm Tom. Thanks for tuning in to Front Row Noles.